Hello, everybody. Have you ever heard of epistemic humility? Well, I hadn't before this conversation. In this week's episode, we are joined by Merve Burnazoglu. And with her, we talk about economic education in multiple countries. We discuss teaching economics and doing a PhD, which includes topics such as migration and the European Union. We also focus on working in finance and being a part of multiple organizations in the economic field. Enjoy this week's episode. I know I did. Yeah. Hey, Merve. Thank you so much for joining me. What have you been up to?
Hey, Yulika. Thanks very much for having me here. It's very nice. It's all good. It's a busy period. Just as you might know, it's the end of the first period of teaching in at least some universities in the Netherlands, and also right away starting of the second period, which makes it a bit complicated, not only for students but also teachers. So and many things are going on. It's busy, but okay, we're all at home and trying to go ahead with this new normal. So that's fine.
How was it to transition as a teacher to the new normal?
It's kind of okay. I mean, good that we all have the internet. I mean, at least I did have a good internet at home. So it was kind of easy for me. And it wasn't very difficult for me to understand all this, like Teams, Zoom, this and that. Of course, you put some time in things, or in the beginning, like you don't know how best to share your slides and how best to see everyone in the meeting, by the time you learn those things. But still, I must say it's okay. I mean, there are disadvantages, obviously, in comparison to just, meeting people in classroom. But there are also advantages, I must say, that,
Like what?
I don't know, you can be more comfortable, you can have more time, because simply you're not, like, for instance, I'm not traveling to Utrecht for teaching. So obviously that gives me like 3 hours extra.
Whoa, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because from door to door, it's like 1.5 hours for me to go to a classroom in Utrecht from my home in Amsterdam. So in a way, yeah, it's like 3 hours I gain every time. But then, yeah, it's not that easy. That math is not that easy, So then you take so many things, and then you can still be in rush before just connecting to your, group online. So it's complicated. I cannot really say everything is great or everything is terrible. So
okay. Yeah. Well, I've had a question about this for a while, for what you said before. Because there's no break between the first block and the second block. At least at my university in Nijmegen, they don't have that. But how is that for teachers? Because then you have the exams that you have to check after the block, but you start the new block. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to keep working. So you have to indeed keep going on with gradings. And I think there's one more thing that you might not be considering from the student point of view, which is that, especially for young teachers like myself, like teaching can be quite difficult. Imagine you're teaching a new course. That means you have to learn everything first and then be able to teach that. So that means you really have quite some preparation. It's not only about joining the meeting or going to classroom and teaching something, but you really need a learning period before that yourself. So imagine the end of the first period and beginning of the second period as like 2-3 weeks at the end of the first period and 2-3 weeks in the beginning of the second, is like all mixed up, about finalizing things, gradings, learning new stuff, preparing for the new classes. So it's a hectic time. So in a way, I'm looking forward to the Christmas break already. But I think you also learn dealing with such things. You accept that things cannot be great, or you learn to be fast and a bit spend your evenings as well. So it's not like 9-5 job, especially at certain periods. So it's I must say it's difficult. As I said, again, it might not be that difficult for very experienced teachers, because perhaps they have their classes, like they have their teachings ready. But especially for young teachers, it's a challenge. It's a bigger challenge, I must say, because you're really
So
learning everything. You're learning grading, you're learning new topics to be able to teach, you're learning how to teach. That's a big thing, I must say. Yeah.
so how do you go about that if you have to learn what you then immediately have to teach? Like how do you start approaching a new subject?
Uh, yeah. Well, I think what I do is like, yeah, I check the literature on things. But first of all, to be able to teach, you also have to prepare a course manual, right? So a syllabus, a reading list. That means already before you start teaching a course, you have to plan that. And if you have to learn first, of course, that takes some time, that you sit down, you check all literature, because you want to give a proper reading list, like up to date with, you know, recent publications and stuff. You don't want to give only books from like 70 years before, So you kind of, I would do some literature review. I would check some other syllabi, like what other teachers in other universities do. For instance, I was preparing this new course, and I asked some teachers, like, would you have some recommendations for me for the reading list? And then I found some syllabi from like Oxford, Cambridge, etc. Then I checked their reading list. I picked some things. Of course, picking is not that easy, because you pick and then you go check the source. You think, whether that's relevant for your course and whether that's relevant for the level of the students also. So you really do kind of literature review all around very quickly, fast readings to check if readings are good items. And I also sometimes, in addition to this literature review, I also sometimes go back to my own student times. I still have my notes of, last 10, 15 years. So really, like, I go check what I was learning. I try to remember what was interesting for me when I was a student for the similar courses. So but it's a very nice thing. And I must say, maybe not every young teacher is given by this opportunity, like to come up with their own courses on their own reading lists, etc. I feel very lucky that people trust me in my program, and I'm more or less free. Of course, I mean, it's not like I can put whatever I want, but you do your best, and then people trust you, and so you can really create something by yourself in a way. So I really like that freedom. Yeah, I like it really.
So what kind of courses do you teach?
Um, so a little explanation here. Until this year, I was teaching only partially. So I was teaching 25%, 40%, etc. So I have been teaching this course called Contemporary Economics in a Historical Perspective. So it's like the history of economics uh, of the 20th century mostly. So actually the time that many new economic tools and methods emerged in a way. So I've been teaching that course for 4 years. That was what my main course. And last year I started to teach also in the PPE program that is new in the Utrecht University. So there I taught about the welfare state, the principles of the welfare state. And then I taught an interdisciplinary course. Well, everything is kind of interdisciplinary in the PPE, but still that course was particularly about producing an interdisciplinary paper, that students would write interdisciplinary papers. And that course was about markets. So I teach about markets, and students write interdisciplinary papers about markets. And then this year, as I said, since September or August, I started to teach full-time now. So I'm like full-time teacher. And in the first period, I taught introduction to economics and business economics. So the first course that, the very young people coming to the university to study economics get. So, and it's a very good course, I must say, because we had like 500, 600 new economic students. Yeah.
That's a
And
lot.
that's a lot indeed. And imagine that this is happening in the corona times, because obviously for universities, it wasn't very clear like how much would people go on or would start new programs, because it's very uncertain times for young people, for families, etc. So I must say it was really uncertain, and we didn't really, I mean, at least it wasn't clear for me like whether we would expect too many students, the same or less or fewer, But yeah, we ended up with, I guess, more, if I remember, if I could follow correctly the calculations. And yeah, of course, I'm not teaching all those 500, 600 students by myself. We are like 5, 6 teachers, and we all have groups. But also with the new corona regulations, you cannot really meet many people at the same time, as you know. So we have some online groups with those who are connecting from all around the world. So they're just in their homes, and they're connecting online. Or we have also campus groups, and the campus groups are really organized in the way that we are in very big classrooms with like 20 people. So that means you have more and more groups. Normally you would have maybe 60 people in one classroom. Now we can have max 20. Yeah. So we had many groups with that. So yeah, there was that course in the first period, introduction. And I also given for the first time 2 courses. One is economics and social justice, and the other is PPE, like philosophy, politics, and economics for the economics students. So, but they were both kind of same. We sometimes, yeah, the students were, together sometimes. Yeah. So I taught these ones, and yeah, there are some new ones coming up now. I must say I'm teaching more and more about philosophy, politics, and economics. So I'm an economist by training, but obviously that's my profile, and also I'm asked to teach more of that, because obviously that's I guess my strong point, and yeah.
So how does that work? Who decides, or how do you decide which courses you're going to teach?
Uh, that works in the, well, first of all, I must say that, as I said, I'm kind of new teacher, right? So I've been teaching for 4 years. So I cannot know everything, and I cannot give a general answer about how things work in every university.
Fair enough.
Yeah, my experience and how I see is that, yeah, so the program coordinators, etc., plan things, and obviously they know your profile, your research, what you can teach, etc. And they ask you like, hey, Merve, for instance, there's this course, we're looking for like one teacher. Would you be able to teach this one? So obviously they ask you whether you're able to teach that, I mean, to be honest, if you ask me now, I'm like, I think I can teach everything if I study enough, because that's like, I mean, I started studying economics in 2007, 8. So it's been like, 13 years. And as a student, I learned many things. Of course, later on, my research, went a certain path. So I can teach some things better than the others, but still, I think I could teach everything. Just I would need some more time for, learning and remembering some things than the others. But yeah, they ask you, you tell whether you feel comfortable teaching that or not. And then, yeah, then they give you the course. And then, of course, you can keep teaching that course the coming year, or if you don't like, or some things go wrong, or there are new plannings in allocation, etc., things can change. Yeah.
So what kind of things do you teach in a course like economics and social justice? Because that's what you said, right? That was the title?
Yeah. So, well, that course is about yeah, social justice, and like the questions of distribution, redistribution, a little bit of basic income, welfare, etc. And what I've done in that course was, so I was the tutorial teacher for that course, and there was the course coordinator, so the person, the teacher that gives the lectures. And in the lectures, the teacher would tell about, again, distribution, redistribution, some like basic income, theories, models, etc. And in my tutorials, we would read a political philosophy book. So, and the book was very nice. It's by Swift, Adam Swift, not Smith. So that's a that sounds confusing. It's a very like introduction book about political philosophy. We would read that book together and discuss every week, like very simple, well, not simple, but basic looking concepts in political philosophy, such as, justice, social justice, global justice, liberty, freedom, well, kind of same, like equality, etc. So these kind of concepts and their conceptions, how they're understood, how we can, use them in economics, etc. So we would discuss, the book, the readings, and we would have like group discussions, trying to make connections with like things we see in the real world, such as who should provide education, is it okay that the government is imposing corner rules, etc. So that was an interesting course, and I think people, as far as I can see, I haven't received the evaluations yet. As you know, the students give their feedback at the end. I haven't received that, but many students already expressed their appreciation about the course. They find it very interesting to, read like some introductory book about those concepts, because we all talk about those concepts. However, the book shows you that they're not like one thing. They're really complicated things, So when you talk about equality, like what do you mean exactly? Or liberty, like what do you mean exactly? So there are many different conceptions and people understand them differently, or they're different in different contexts, like in the UK or in the US. So people really appreciated reading about that, and then also discussing freely, with their classmates, like in little, like smaller groups, and then coming up, having a debate all together. And also I try to make, especially the tutorials, quite interactive. As you can imagine, it's not easy to make things interactive when you meet online. So it's not as easy, as in the classroom. Um, so I really wanted to, I was thinking like, okay, we don't have to learn everything great, One of the aims, I think, right now in the given situation is that we should keep sane, and we should feel that we see our friends or classmates to an extent that we can discuss with them. It's not about only you read so well and then you can point at the text, very well or something like that, but it's more like having a discussion, a social interaction also. So, and I think that was also, from my perspective, was a kind of success. And some of the feedback I got already shows that it was. So I hope it was. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, from being an economics student to being now an economics teacher, so how did that go? How was that transition? Was it easy to switch, or did you learn a whole lot of different things that you didn't even think about before?
Do you mean about PPE, like philosophy, politics, and economics?
Yeah, or how the economics education system works?
Well, I think these are two questions. So if that's about economics education and the style of learning and teaching, that's one question. And the other is, being an economics student. Now I'm teaching mostly PPE, so philosophy, politics, and economics. So these are two questions. Which one, I think?
Let's start with the first one.
Okay. Well, the style teaching, I think I must here say that, as you know, but the audience might not know, that I studied in very different contexts. So I studied in like 5, 6 countries and different programs. That means I ended up with like seeing quite different styles, right? Like for students and for teachers as well. So if well, cut me off if I'm making a big story out of that, out of
No, it's fine.
small question. But so for instance, I started studying economics in Turkey, in Ankara, in the Hacettepe University. And that was a very different style. I studied economics for like 4 or 5 years there, because there the bachelor's is not 3 years, but 4 years originally. And then you have some preparation year, and you can very easily make an extra year because you are taking so many courses. And in my case, I also had an Erasmus exchange year, which was a full different story. So I really added that on top of my, 4 years. So That's a long process, and the style in my program there was very different. It was very different from what I've seen later. Like, so we have learned all the like neoclassical stuff, of course, all basic economics courses, etc. However, it wasn't only that. We had many courses on like political economy, even Marxist political economy, like philosophy of science, social science, methodology, history. Even for history, we had like three maybe different things, like history of economics, economic thought, history of the economy, or economic history. So they're like all, you can even find the word history in a few courses, and you learn different things. So it was a very, in that sense, it was a very diverse program, and the style was more like we would go to the classroom, not necessarily having read many things. So that's a style difference, I must say. So you wouldn't need so much preparation, but go to the lecture and learn, you know? And I know it's going to sound like ancient, but we didn't even have so much like slides or PowerPoint, that kind of things, because it was more like really classical university education. Like we would go and the teacher would come. Of course, they're all different styles, different teachers, but like some teachers, especially those who studied and had their PhDs in the US, they would come to the classroom, very cool, sit on the desk and start a story and discussion. Like I remember that for some courses, like especially philosophy of economics and like political economy, we would have, they would teach, we would have great discussions. So that was a particular style, I must say. And I had many electives there as well. And in that program, I don't remember having many homework or assignments. So that's again something a little bit about like style. But it was very diverse, and I had very interesting courses, and that was really what created my all interest in economics, in certain questions, etc. So that was my basis. And then after that, I went to Erasmus. I had this Erasmus exchange in the Strasbourg University in France. There again, it was a very different style, but it was just 1 year, and I basically tried to keep my head above the water because everything was in French, and so yeah. So that was a year for me, like, okay, so learn the content, but also understand everything in French. So it was really double difficult for me. And also some courses were in like very big amphis with maybe hundreds of students, and you are like a bit lost trying to understand everything in French, trying to note. Yeah. So that was an interesting experience, but well, it helped my French, obviously. And I learned some different things. Yeah, especially because Strasbourg is a particular city. I also got some courses about like European Union institutions, etc. And those were in English, so that was okay. But also some very interesting, again, history and philosophy classes, which were in French and which were quite challenging. So that's again interesting, but it was just 1 year and it's Erasmus, so you don't have to end up with great results, but that's an experience that every student, I think, should have at some point. And then my master's was a full different story. And so from after Turkey and then France in Strasbourg, I went to this master's program again in France in Aix-en-Provence and Marseille. So it's Aix-en-Marseille University. And that was really a big shock for me because I started directly to the second year of the program, because in France there's master 1 and 2, and you can take only master 1 and stop, or you can take both. So it's like research master, you would have 2 years and write a thesis. So in a way it's similar. And there I skipped the first year, obviously, because I had already like 5 years of like studying economics. So I started directly the second year, but that meant for me taking like 10 13 classes, and all very particular classes, really, and writing a thesis in 1 year. So that's just 1 year that I took many courses and wrote a thesis. And that program was really very particular because, so it's an economics master's program, but in the second year you choose, a specialization. And mine, so as I didn't study the first one, I directly chose one specialization, which was, um, well, in English, you would say like public policy analysis and philosophical foundations. So there's philosophy in the name, right? So that was what actually attracted me to that specialization. And however, I must say the whole program is quite rigorous, like very mathematical and quantitative. Like we had courses, for instance, on rationality and decision, social justice. So for instance, social justice, you're like, oh, it sounds like very verbal, but not. So you, like I remember, I think that was rationality and decision. We would just go on with formulas and formula and equations and proofs and hours and hours. You are at some point you might feel like your brain dead, but it's still going on. You lose sense of everything at some point. No, I mean I don't want to understate the value of that course. Obviously, that's an accumulation of many studies and great people in that field. And actually, I must say that the teachers at that program, they're all quite known in their fields, and so it was a great program. But it was a big shock for me after more like verbal and qualitative in a way education. I ended up like with this, and also we had assignments for everything. That was also a like style difference for me as a student. Simply I didn't know how to write a thing, because there wasn't any bachelor's thesis in my program. So I of course I had written some things, but it's really something that you learn by the time by writing, right? The more assignment you get, more you learn about how to put things together. So I even learned that in that program. So it was a harsh program, really, for me. Okay, I'm going so long, I think. But you
No, I
see,
was wondering about that though. You didn't have a bachelor thesis in Turkey?
no,
That's so interesting because when I was in Canada, it was the same. It was like it was an optional thing that barely anybody did. And I was like, in the Netherlands, it's how you graduate. You don't graduate unless you have a bachelor thesis.
yeah.
So, but in France, it was there. Like in the French education, it is there.
Well, I'm not fully sure, to be honest, because I never had a bachelor's degree in France. I just had the exchange
Fair enough.
Erasmus as part of it. And then what I'm talking about now is the master's program. And obviously, in master's, if you want to have a research master, 2 years, then you write a thesis. But
Hmm.
yeah, bachelor's, yeah, in Turkey, there wasn't, maybe now there is, I'm not sure. Obviously, you have some assignments, like in econometrics, you had the assignment, you had to do that to pass. So some courses have those, but it, I mean, as far as I remember, it was very light. So we didn't have to write an assignment for every course, which I think is the case almost for every course I see now in economics and PPE in the Netherlands. So it's very much based on like writing assignments in your own production, and the students have to apply the information, the knowledge they learn to something by writing. And it
Do
can
you
go
think?
unnoticed, but it's very important, really, because you learn writing. That's not
Mhm.
just anything, I must say.
Do you think that that's the one of the most important skills students should learn, or which skills should they learn coming out of a degree?
Yeah, definitely. Writing is a very important thing because, well, not only writing, but that's one of the most important, I must say, because that's how, yeah, how you can communicate, your knowledge. Of course, not. It depends on what you do after your, degree, but that's very important. And I think it's not only about, like, you don't have to be a policy. policymaker writing things and reports, etc. But still, writing systematically and being able to have a structure in an essay, etc. It really helps you organize your mind, I believe. So it really teaches you, how to put knowledge together in a meaningful way, how to organize it well. And I must say, if you, of course, it also depends on the teacher, if the teacher is giving you good feedback about that, because many students can end up writing and not getting feedback. But I think, which is not very common in the Netherlands, that many students get feedback, I think. But the quality can be different, the length of the feedback can be different. But like for instance, in one of my courses, students write like 3-4 papers during a period. That's a lot. So
That's a lot.
every 2 weeks they write a paper. And especially for the first paper they write, I really sit down for a week to, give feedback, because we're talking about 50, 60 students, and every paper is like 2,000 words. That's quite long. And then I really sit down and not just write like few lines of feedback, but mostly directly in the document in Word or PDF, like, what is this? What do you mean? Why you tell this? Don't be vague. Don't, organize your writing, etc. So I try to be, it might sound harsh, but I feel like you need to get that feedback at some point to understand that, writing is important and you should learn, you should work on it. And I must say, it's not like I know it great. I do myself, I write amazing things so that I can teach. No, it's not about that. But as a student, you can feel that as well, right? When you're reading a publication, well, if something is published, that says something about its quality oftentimes, so you can see that it's written well. On the other hand, when you read something, you're like just confused, like there's no clear structure, you don't, there are many things untold, like, in between lines are hidden. So you can really feel the quality difference uh, also as a student when you're reading things. And I think it's a very important skill that you learn, and getting honest and maybe harsh looking feedback is, I think, very necessary for that.
Yeah, I learned that as a student in my first year. I got so much feedback. I was like, okay, so we leave our feelings at the door and then we go through all the feedback, because it would just be completely read. And then they were like, no, this is a good thing, because that means then you can have all these ways to improve. And I'd be like, yeah, sure. Okay. That's very red, but okay. We'll
Yeah,
work from there.
yeah, exactly. You should learn. Yeah. It doesn't have to reflect on the grade, obviously, but still, as a learning experience, it's a very important thing, I must say.
So because you do a PhD, right? So what do you do a PhD in?
Well, so my PhD is a bit complicated, I must say, because my PhD has been next to some other things I've been doing, so it's going a bit longer than usual, and maybe a bit not a very standard track I'm going through. So my PhD is fully on my interest. I'm not a part of a project. That means I don't have a given topic to work on, right? So I am free again to to design and choose what I want to work on. Of course, not like fully free. I have very involved teachers, and I have discussions and many meetings with them to decide on what to do. But anyway, so this is just a disclaimer about the type of my PhD. And so my general interest is really very broad. That is how societies and economies are organized and how we make knowledge of them. So I'm very interested in the epistemology in that sense, which is for me in the intersection of like political economy and philosophy and methodology of economics. So and especially here, I'm interested in the questions of identity. That means who are individuals and social groups, and how we model and measure these individuals or groups. So the identity. And in my PhD thesis, I applied these broad questions about the questions of identity and how we model and measure them to migrants integration. So that means I'm interested in how we model who migrants are, what skills they have, how do they integrate, etc., and how we measure these, and also how the policies are made. Because as you know, migration is a like hot topic. I mean, it's been a hot topic for a long time, but especially since I started my PhD, which is 2015, 16, like that summer was, crazy, just like on spot, right? On, great timing in a way that, that was a hot topic. And it was great time because since then, especially, like there are many policies popping up, in the, like in case of Europe, in the member state level, or some European policies overall. And this is a great input for me, because there's like so much to think about and analyze, like how are policies made, like what kind of models do they use, models at all, or what kind of measurements do they have measurements at all, or is everything just like, based on, some narratives about who migrants are or how they integrate? Because as you can imagine, like there is a big field, migration studies, and there are many studies being done, in many different fields, like in economics, sociology, political science, law, etc. And then there is the policy making. But I mean, what is the connection between, the production of knowledge and actually the policy making about the issues? So I'm very interested in these questions, and um, so I try to use the inputs, so the real world in a way, like the policies that are coming up, especially by the European institutions. And I tried to do that, for instance, in one of my papers about refugees labor market integration. So I looked at a policy tool, we can call it, that was created by the European Commission, and that was a great case for me. To deal with something very recent, something very real and relevant for now, because that's a tool that is created now and an application, so I can directly look at it and how it works, what it is, etc. Yeah.
So these tools, how should you see them? Are they like models? Are they like a mathematical equation? Are they like a explanation of a guide how to do something? How should we see that?
uh, I can't give a general answer because, well, one thing is that
Or an example, that's also
yeah
fine.
yeah so European institutions, maybe not all, but especially European Commission, works very closely with some they have research, so it's not like they're just doing policies as they wish, like, with ideologies and stuff. So they really have like strong connections with, for instance, OECD, like OECD and European Commission works very closely as far as I see. And European Commission has like many researchers, working under in the institution. So they, of course, make use of like scientific research, the most common research, new measurements, etc. But I mean, these are difficult questions because we are still talking about, social beings and social life. It's not a, physics lab. So obviously, it's not an easy thing. And even if you are coming up with very rigorous analysis, you can always find some other ingredients in the knowledge production. And that was kind of one thing that I was looking for and kind of found in my paper, that in that paper that I looked at the policy tool, that the like especially in the policies, you really see that there are many ingredients, not just one model about how migrants would integrate. Like, okay, so the years passes, they get more and more human capital, they catch up with the natives, etc. So this is the like classical way of seeing how would migrants catch up. And obviously we are thinking here low skilled migrants, because they come, they are not equal, they don't have the same capital, etc., with the natives, and then by the time they would catch up. So these are classical things, and there are new models and measurements, etc. But there are still stories going on. Like there are other ingredients such as the narratives. So for instance, now we see in the European policies narratives like investment. So now we look at in the European level, when you look at the the latest reports, etc., by the Commission, for instance, you see things like, okay, so we cannot just talk about human capital based integration, but we should see that like as an investment. So we should invest on migrants and refugees so that in the future, they will be useful for the labor, like European labor market. And there are like some different policies, such as, for instance, the blue card, again, like which aims to get like attract highly skilled migrants, etc. So in the basis of all these is the fact that the European labor market is well, it's aging. That's the fact they use mostly. And the belief is that migrants and refugees can be useful, can contribute to these labor markets, because obviously they are, the numbers are showing that they are younger, especially refugees, and they can contribute to this aging labor market. And you see this very openly in the reports. So there is this investment narrative now going on. So it's interesting because, like, for instance, when you look at the guest workers case, like when people came to the Western Europe in like 70s, I think the Netherlands is a bit later than like Germany. There was a different like story going on, because obviously people came to just help after the Second World War, like help create the country again, work in the rebuilding. And then they were supposed to go. Some of them went, some of them stayed, but then that was a very certain profile. And there was this story about like, hey, so low skilled migrants staying in a country, a very certain profile we're talking about. But now there is the investment, I think, narrative on top of that, that they can be useful for future. These are all interesting. And like in my paper, for instance, I quote some things by the people from the European institutions, like that, they have some speech, and they're all nice speeches, they're like, yeah, it's very important, we should see this like this as European Union, like that, etc. And obviously they're kind of politically correct, and very nice words, like supporting the fact that that we should be in peace with the idea of having migrants coming in, etc. But still, when you look, when you search enough, you see that there are really underlying ideas, beliefs, assumptions about who those people are, or really expectations from those people that you might not have from natives. Like, for instance, you really want those people to be useful for you. Like migrants can come, but okay, they must be useful, so they cannot just get welfare and benefit from public services, but they have to pay back by contributing to the labor market, to production, this and that. So yeah, all interesting topics. It's very big. There are many things, and I'm very interested in that because it really fits into my general interest. It's a good application thing for me, because as I said, my general interest is so general, so broad, like so how society works, how economy works, and how we make knowledge of it, how we produce knowledge and use that knowledge, and also the politics of knowledge. So how the knowledge can lead to certain political consequences for the agents, the individuals or groups we are talking about. And this migration is a great application point for me, because that's real, that's happening, that's very that's changing every day. So it's never ending input for your research. So I'm happy about that.
That's really interesting. So I also learned that you don't, like, next to teaching and doing a PhD, you also do a whole lot of other things. Can you tell maybe a little bit about some of those?
Yeah, that's very right. So well, one thing I've been doing, like one of the major things I've been doing and stopped lately, is working in finance. So from day one, I started not day one, but So I came to the Netherlands for my PhD because I wanted to work on a certain topic and with the teachers, like certain teachers, right? So I came here and then I started also working in finance to have a living. And so though I don't really have an interest in finance, to be honest, as you see, like my research interest is not really like financial economics or financial markets, but still, well, people see that you are an economist, that means you can work in finance. So still you can sell your CV and degree in that way if you wanted to, though your research and interest can be very different. So I started to work in this finance job for well 5 years. So I had, in addition to my PhD and teaching, I had that finance job, and yeah, for like part-time kind of. That was very interesting. That was a very good experience for me, though, as I said, I wasn't very interested in the content of the job. Still, that gave me the opportunity of seeing a real world, financial organization, like how things work with investment, with banks, like business, this and that, even also workplace, and even identity issues in the workplace, a bit relating to my own topic. So that was a very good experience. I had this on one hand, and that one ended this year, like in August. So since then, I started teaching full time. And in addition, I've had many like external duties and engagements, involvements in yeah, movements and economic associations, academic associations, etc. And I think that's very important for me. So it's not a duty like it's not like your university gives you the duty to, duty for an administration work or something. That was really my own interest to be active in the field, uh, to do something for the field, for the discipline. So it was all voluntary for me. Like I'm like, okay, oh, there is this association. Like I go to their conferences, I get to know people, I join the events, and then I start organizing something myself, like not myself, but of course with other, people, like co-organize things with like amazing groups, which actually helped me to get great friends all around the world, because to organize something together with people is, I think, a great way to know each other, get to know each other, and also you learn many like practical things on the way, such as, yeah, how to deal with people, how to invite people to events, how to uh, and yeah, there are many interesting people in the world, so you really you learn business a little bit this way. And also like how to attract people, how to make something, organize something interesting that people would like to join, or you provide some like nice lectures to, young scholars in which they can yeah, learn things that they wouldn't learn in their own programs and discuss them also. So I've been involved in like a few associations very actively. Like one is European Association for Evolutionary Political Economy, that is EP in short. There I've been active for like 5 years. We are organizing pre-conferences every year, and I'm also coordinating the social economics research area. So we are organizing events for that. And then there is like INET YSI, for instance. There's INET, and then the Young Scholars Initiative inside the INET. There I was like active as a member kind of, but recently I became coordinator of one of the working groups, that is philosophy of economics. So there now we are trying to, with the whole community, we are trying to come up with interesting projects, reading groups, etc. So there are all these kind of engagements. And yeah, I find it very valuable because I believe economics, you cannot just stay in an office like very isolated and work on your research, because economics is a discipline that I think changes every day. Like it's very dynamic, obviously. So there are a lot going on, and it's very much connected with the real world and real world politics also, I think, like by its nature. Even if, especially in the rethinking economics and now, and in general rethinking economics, we are like, okay, we want real world perspective. Of course, we want that in our courses and teaching and learning, but that's almost impossible to not have it anyway, because that's a discipline that requires direct connection with that real world, real society and economy and politics going on. So for me, that wasn't an option to just stay in an office and work on my research, but I had to be active in the field and know what's happening in different subfields in economics, or some very other events happening in the world about politics, and how it can have an impact in economics, like on the discipline, etc. So yeah, I've been very active. So last 5 years have been like a bit hectic, but also sometimes, of course, I regret that I do like too many things sometimes, but I also feel happy in the end to be an active agent in this field. Uh, yeah, I like it. That's really about my fascination with economics, I think, because I think no one would really do those things out of like just as voluntary actions.
Yeah, that's so interesting. But so I always wonder, what are the different associations like goals, or what are you trying to move towards? Like I know from Rethinking, like a diverse and plural economics, but what is, for example, the European Association for Political Economy? Like what are you striving towards?
Well, that's so EP, that association. Yeah, again, I don't want to be the representative of it now and tell things that that might not fully fit the general vision and mission. However,
What does it mean to you? I guess that's then
yeah,
the question.
yeah, exactly. So that I can answer. Well, as I see, the association is a big European association, first off, and it's an heterodox association. So, well, in every year in the annual conferences, you see 300-400 people attending, and that's a big, like quite yeah, big crowd for European associations, because most of the times you can see rather like 100 people and stuff in other conferences. So that's a big network, and that's a very in terms of like subfields, it's very diverse. So you see like many different heterodox approaches, yeah, from I don't know, from macro to institutions to micro to complexity. And yeah, like for instance, ABM is very active right now, like agent-based modeling and complexity is, I think, really growing a lot within the association. So for instance, was it last year? Yeah, I think it was last year we were in Warsaw, and like there were many sessions organized on agent-based modeling and complexity in general. So that shows me that, wow, so this is really getting big, they're really working a lot, and there are many people presenting. So yeah, so
What
that's
is
a mixed product.
agent-based modeling? What is that?
It's a kind of so it's you know about complexity economics, I think. And agent-based modeling is one of the things that you can do with the complexity economics. That's about, well, yeah, based on agents and employing complexity ideas such as like emergence, interactions, etc., which are quite different from like neoclassical understanding of how things work. You can model, so you can have a software, platform such as, like, yeah, you can do everything on Python, or you can have like if it's things like NetLogo, which are easier to use, but still you can do some things. So you can just model things, you can define agents, how they interact, etc., and you can add some randomness, and then you can run that simulation, for instance, like many times, and you can see how things work. Like you can see emerging phenomena, and you can then also calibrate, you can use some data and see whether that explains or whether that works, etc. So I'm not myself a complex economist, but I've been interested in that as well, because that was obviously an alternative view, like very different fundamentals it has in comparison to like neoclassical understanding, how you see individuals in their interaction and phenomena. So I was very interested in that. I tried to learn a little bit. So I'm kind of fascinated seeing crazy work with like also so much data, many rounds of simulations, etc. It's crazy. And also like high level mathematical modeling also, that's a big field. So I haven't been really specializing in that, but it was interesting for me from at least a philosophy and methodology of economics point of view to see how different it is, from like yeah, neoclassical or other approaches or frameworks in economics. But
So
so yeah,
have you Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead.
So have you always been like understanding of heterodox economics, or did you learn about this later in your economics career? Was it there from the beginning? How did that go?
Well, when I studied, when I started studying economics in Turkey, in Hacettepe, I don't remember, I'm not sure if we were really talking about mainstream and heterodox, but I think I was more interested in the heterodox ones anyway. So, and obviously even political economy or philosophy, that they kind of fall in, to my understanding, fall in the like heterodox views. And so I think I was an heterodox economist from day one. And obviously it doesn't mean that I didn't learn others. As I said, I mean, it's been a long time, and I think I had the chance to learn many different views and, you know, methods and everything. But I think I learned heterodox economics, and I've been interested in that from the very beginning. And again, I think my program has a big role in that, because I had the
Okay.
chance to learn. Yeah.
So before we go to the lightning rounds, I was wondering, has economics changed over the last 13 years that you've been like in it, like studying it, teaching it, working in it, researching it? Have you seen like big changes in economics?
Uh, well, obviously, that's a big question, and many people are writing on this. You know, there are many historians of economics, methodologists writing on this endlessly. Uh, but my answer, depending on my own experience, and especially like having traveled, you know, in like different contexts and programs and countries, I feel like heterodoxy, or some elements that were more like heterodox, are getting more and more into the mainstream. Like you see this with the real world perspective, behavioral stuff, realism, this and that, you know, like many things are getting like more embraced in mainstream economics, though not exactly as they were meant to be in the heterodox, but still. So there is obviously an endless shift between, you know, or movements between mainstream and heterodox. I think that's always changing. And another thing is that I think, especially in the Netherlands, I think, and also in Germany, I would say. By the way, I also studied in Germany, but I cut off that part. So I studied philosophy and economics like for 1 year. But anyway, uh, I must say I feel like people are more accepting the rethinking idea and the like pluralism, or the need to, you know, come up with like more real world perspective, or like questioning the workings of the markets, questioning of the institutions, this and that. So I see a general change in that direction, that we are more in peace to question things. And well, obviously, as everyone says now, it's a known fact that, especially since the financial crisis, it was easier to talk about, you know, what doesn't work in economics. So so that kind of opened the way to heterodox economists, or some, you know, some others, to be able to question more openly. So I think that's changing, that you can really raise questions more easily today, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then let's do a little lightning round.
Yeah.
So I ask a question and just say the first thing that comes up.
Okay.
What
Is
is
that
a skill any economist should learn?
it's epistemic humility, I would say. It might not be
What is
known.
that?
Yeah, because during the talk I said writing, but it was just one of the things. I think if I had to choose one thing that every economist should have, is the epistemic humility. That's yeah, Eric Agner of Stockholm University emphasizes this thing. It's about knowing your limits. So knowing the limits of your knowledge. And I think that's very important thing for like any scientist or any person in the world, but especially for economists, you know, where we're talking about a certain type of knowledge. And I think everyone should have that epistemic humility again.
Okay. Who do you admire or look up to in economics?
That's a very difficult question for me, because I have so many, and they don't have to be very known economists. So I cannot give a quick answer, but I can tell a profile. So I especially admire people like well, young people, people of color, women, etc., like raising their voices within the field, within the discipline of economics to change things in economics profession and practice, but also in economic methodology. So how we do things, they really, like, many people are coming up with amazing new approaches, like in feminist economics or certification economics, I must say. So I cannot give one person, but there are many like amazing scholars doing amazing things right now. So I cannot really say one.
Wait, what did you just say? Certification economics?
Yeah, stratification, like
That.
so I think it's a sociological term and concept in general. It's like stratified society. So how society is stratified, by classes,
Oh.
by race, gender, etc. And that's a thing that has been in other fields, in disciplines, in economics as well. It started especially by the Black economists, and like analyzing how society keeps being stratified with regard to race, for instance, like how racial inequalities keep reproducing themselves within the economy and society. So that kind of studies, so you should look that up, really. It's
I will. That's so interesting. I never heard of that.
yeah. So feminist economics and certification economics, as I said, like amazing fields that you can see so different work coming up and very interesting questions about the very fundamentals of economics and neoclassical economics. But not only that, even other strands. Yeah. So that's very cool.
Okay, so what is a quote or statistic that has always stuck with you?
Okay, now I'm gonna sound like Marxist, but so yeah, what I have for many years is Marx, actually a quote by Marx, like yeah, you have nothing to lose but your chains. So I don't know if you have that one. So that's simply for the workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. I like the part about you have nothing to lose but your chains, because that really motivates me, like encourages me to do many things. Like each time I'm excited about doing a new thing, like teaching, giving a presentation in front of like many people in the US for the first time, like all kind of things that you have to do as a young scholar, or like you have to raise your voice to say something or to say no for something, then you obviously need some encouragement. And somehow this quote, no matter if it's said by Marx or someone else, but still this quote really helps me encourage myself. So you have nothing to lose but your chains, so go ahead.
That's really great.
Yeah.
What is the question you want me to ask that I haven't asked you yet?
No, I think you ask amazing questions, and yeah, I cannot think of anything else. So I really enjoyed the whole thing. Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that.
And yeah, if I may say right now, um, so yeah, we didn't talk about rethinking economics and now, because obviously I talk too much about other things, so we didn't have time. I'm sorry for that. Um, but yeah, I've been a part of rethinking movements, also in other contexts, and then Netherlands, and I'm like a big fan, obviously, of the movement. But I must say, I really love like this podcast series that you're coming up with. I think it's a great thing. So thank you very much for that. Really, it's very fun to listen to. When you're doing your dishes, cooking, and or running and all that. So it's very nice to hear this chat and in very social setting. So thank you very much for that, Yulika.
Well, thank you. That is really nice to hear.
It's really great.
So, about all the things that you like or are fascinated by, where can people find more things that you're enthusiastic about?
About me, right? So, or
Yeah, or the websites or the things that you are like this. You should look into this. Where can we find it?
well, uh, yeah, for what I'm up to, or for the like associations, etc., that I mentioned, because obviously the names can be forgotten. You can always check me, my name and surname, and then you will. I guess the first thing you will find is my university webpage, and there you will also see the association names, for instance. So, like, there's European Association for Social. Sorry, I'm now mixing everything up. European Association for Evolutionary Political Economy, INET YSI, or like feminist economics, certification economics, etc., or epistemology. All those like keywords or strands or associations that I was talking, I think can be found in my webpage when I'm describing myself. And if anyone wants to ask anything, there's also my email. So I'm happy to, receive an email or have a coffee if anyone is up to well, outside in a park or by a Zoom meeting, obviously. But yeah, or otherwise, yeah, people can just really look for certification economics and feminist economics, for instance, and they will obviously find associations or some descriptions about those new fields. So I think that would be my answer. Yeah.
So, what is your advice for future economists?
Again, a difficult question. Your questions look so simple, but difficult. But I said that they should, I think, all have this, try to pick this skill that is about epistemic humility. So like knowing their limits, not the limits of their knowledge. And that would also come with the suggestion that they should be responsible, because economists can have no impact whatsoever, or they can have ridiculous impact, much bigger than they would have ever imagined. So I would say anytime, just be responsible, be aware of your knowledge and what you do with that, and that it might have consequences beyond your aim or your role. So that will be, I think, my biggest suggestion. And maybe, enjoy it and think about it. Think and rethink economics, So it's not just like something you go learn and take and just apply. No, I think economics is a fascinating discipline that requires questioning and rethinking. So I would recommend being active in the field and, engage in the discussion in the making of the discipline.
So then the final question, what does the future of economics look like to you?
It looks crazy to me because, again, it's changing every day. As I said, it's a very exciting discipline because it keeps changing. I think I repeat myself, but especially with these new approaches, and I mean, not new, but now they're more visible, that like with these approaches and fields like certification and feminist, you are really seeing like many different ways of modeling, measuring, questioning, all kind of things. So I think obviously it will change a lot. And I think it's going to be in the positive sense, I must say. So I think we will be able to question what we have been doing even better and come up, like, in a way, deconstruct and decolonize the type of economics we have been doing, I think, in the even near future, especially thanks to the events, I think, happening all around the world right now, like the political events. So I think they have an impact.
Thank you so much for making all the time and for the great conversation. And have a great day.
Thank you very much, Julika. I'm sorry for talking so much, but I really enjoyed it. And again, you're making a great thing here. So thanks a lot.